Hi everybody and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be taking a little look at the markets which have been going a little nuts over the last several days due to the current events that are going on. So the first was the Grand Prix style race, and that was basically buy a fast ship and get from point A to point B to get the current rewards. And then there was the Abyss PvP grounds which were using scepters as well. So for instance, the malediction is currently up 27% at 34 million, and they were selling at one point for around about the 40-45 million mark. Now, and you can see the sudden surge, and this was the double whammy caused by the Grand Prix and by the Abyss Scepter only entry. And as you can see, obviously it almost doubled the demand over the last 3 days while the events or the Scepter event was going on. So I had someone in my channel contact me and we had a bit of a chat about this, and I decided to get in on this early, and unfortunately I bought the Ares. Now the Ares hasn't done as good as a lot of the other Scepters, and there was the initial surge as people bought them for the Grand Prix, I do believe, but again in the proving grounds they have been less than optimal. So in regards to, well, let's have a look, see, we're currently at 26, these did get up to 27 million and currently selling at 7% above, but things like the Crow did really well because again they're missile based, and that is sometimes helpful in the proving grounds that you can stay at range. They had an MWD 100%, or not an MWD, sorry, a propulsion mod 100% increase, so the Crow seemed to do very well out of it, and basically a lot of people were buying up Crows. These were going at about 50 odd million at one point as well, so again you can see the huge surge. So I bought the Ares. I initially bought these for 20.8 million. I bought 60 of them and I sold them at 24.5, and that gave me a rough profit of about 150 million ISK. Now I did sell these slightly early as I was expecting the surge was more than I expected, because as I say, I hadn't accounted for the PvP aspect. I'd only accounted for the Grand Prix. So after the initial surge on whatever day it was when the Grand Prix started, I kind of expected manufacturers to catch up and to tank the market back down to where it normally is. And obviously with the continued surge and the amount of people being destroyed in low sec in the scepters, etc., that obviously kept demand quite high. So I did miss out potentially on 3 million ISK per unit there, so I could have actually quite have increased my profits if I'd have been a bit braver and held on a bit longer. Now initially the Scepter market seemed pretty decent, and that was because we were buying at a relatively low point, so as I said, just above the 20 million mark, and it wasn't much of a risk. I pretty much should have bought more than 60, and I should have spread it around. I only bought the Ares. I should have bought more of them, but hey, you live and you learn. So the idea here was I obviously bought them for 21 mil, and as they were at a low point, I didn't see it being much of a risk, because if I had have got stuck with them, I could have just sold them back on the market for a little bit of loss, where we would have taken a 5% hit. So the risk there was relatively low. Now since then, obviously the event has come to an end, I do believe, and now we are looking at the Hawk. Now the Hawk is starting to spike because of the proving grounds again. I keep calling them proving grounds, I don't know if it's the right one. The PvP Abyss combat that's coming up, which will be assault ships. So the general selling price for these is around about the 30. I think they're 33 to produce, give or take, in regards to, and then including build fees. So quite an increase in these at the moment. They are selling for 24% above their general standard. So at the moment there's a decent amount of profit to be made in these assault frigs. Now I have checked some of the others and they don't seem to be spiking at the moment. And I can't spell menu. So these are really quite low. In fact, these seem really low, but again, not great ships. I've checked the retribution. It's going up slightly. Now the retribution could be quite good in the PvP Abyss sites, but The problem that they have is they only have the 2 mid slots, so you've either got an MWD or an afterburner in there, and then you've either got your web or your scram to stop people from MWDing away from you. So it does do, I think, the most damage per se for a assault ship. So this will be quite interesting what people go for. Now the Hawk is missile based, so again, as we discussed slightly earlier, the missile ships generally do quite well because it doesn't matter, they're quite easy to hit. Now you can see the Harpy seems to be, well, there's been quite a lot of buying from the Harpy, but the Harpy's price hasn't really shifted as yet. Now obviously I am in the Hawk business. Now I was initially in the Hawk business because obviously I've been doing the Abyssal sites, and I have burnt through quite a lot of Hawks over the last couple of months, and the Hawk had a spike a couple of weeks ago, probably about two months, wherever, and it jumped here, and I decided after that I was going to build myself some Hawks because, well, I was burning through them and I didn't want to pay an increased price on them when I could just build some myself. So thankfully I already had the stuff for the Hawks ready, and as we can see here in the manufacturing area, some have just been completed here, and we've got a good number researching, invention, copying, and so say obviously the rest of the stuff that we've generally got going on there. So it's been quite handy. I've also building another couple here in Jitter, so I've got several on the build at the moment, and again, so say it's been handy because I was already at the point where I could just bang them out. Now these have been selling, as I said, pretty decently. I am slowly catching up. It's taken a while to get everything producing because obviously I needed to make some more copies. I've then had to do the invention. The invention does take quite a long time, even in perimeter. I think it's 16 hours. I can't remember if it's 16 hours for 1 or 2. 17. So yeah, it takes about 17 hours to do a single copy, which is obviously why I've got as many people involved at the moment that I can physically make copies for. So, and obviously some of them do fail as well, which means I need even more to be able to try and crank them out quick enough. Now the market is slowly catching up to an extent. We've got some rather large orders here that have been placed relatively recently. So that was 8 hours ago and an hour ago. So yeah, people are slowly catching on and again starting to produce these. So the price could end up tanking, but it depends how good they turn out to be in the PvP arena. So the Hawk's quite nice because it's got a good amount of mid slots, but it does suffer with a lack of low slots. So you obviously your 2 ballistics in there and then tank in the middle. You can obviously put rockets on it, so it can actually do a decent amount of damage if you're willing to go rockets. I think you can pretty much pump it out to 350 DPS, which is pretty high considering the missile launcher. You're probably looking at around about the 220 mark, so it is a huge increase. And obviously with no tracking issues, the rockets can do a decent amount of damage from 8k. So with the Tech 2 battleships still selling strongly at the moment, we've got the Golem here selling at around about 50 units a day, with the other 3 selling in around about the 30 mark. That's obviously having quite an impact on Tech 2 components at the moment, and that is obviously having quite an effect because things are being bought out due to all of a sudden the surge in obviously the Tech 2, the Interceptors, the assault ships, and yeah, that's just at the moment. So yeah, there are items which are struggling to keep up in demand because people are buying out the markets because obviously they're using them in production. So at the moment is a great time to be manufacturing if you are in the right place at the right time in order to take advantage of all these changes and sudden events. And as you can see, the markets have been responding accordingly. Now obviously these will go down sooner or later The Scepters have already started dropping. The assault ships are on the rise at the moment, but the event only lasts for a few days, and again, once the manufacturing catches up, these will drop quickly back down to their normal levels. However, the Marauders are likely to stay elevated for a good period of time yet. We're probably looking at weeks, potentially months, and that is because not a lot of people had a Tech 2 battleship just lying around, and this is twofold. One, because they weren't that great. You could use a faction battleship, rattlesnake, etc., and do pretty much as well. And obviously with the cost, if you had bought one of these and decided that it wasn't really for you, you're probably better off selling it. You weren't likely to just keep it hanging around in your hangar, and that's because they're obviously quite expensive. So most people have assault ships, scepters, you know, small ship, maybe the odd battleship, 2, 3, 4 battleships hanging around, but you know, at the price of these for what, nigh on 2 billion ISK or whatever they were selling for prior. Again, it varied between what, 2.5 and 1.5. So obviously now everybody's decided, well, pretty much at the moment these are the best PvE battleships that you can get in the game due to the sheer amount of DPS they're putting out. So everybody now wants one. So the current people that have the skills are obviously buying them up to use, and there are a lot of people training now because battleship skills haven't really been that required for a lot of PvE, but the Gila can do it pretty well, or the VNI, or. So I imagine there's a lot of people now all of a sudden training battleships to 5 because the Marauders do require you to have battleship level 5. So obviously that will take a bit of time. As you can see here, I've got 67 days if I want to do it now. You can, with decent attribution, get that down to 8 weeks, which is 60 days. So yeah, not that much difference. But again, you're going to have these people slowly trading up now to get in these. So the demand will stay, I imagine, relatively constant. It might dip off slowly, but it's going to be, again, much higher than it is here. And we've also got them being destroyed now, probably more regular due to the fact that more people are using them. So I don't see the demand here dropping off anytime soon, which means, yeah, at the moment they are sucking up the Tech 2 Moongoo, or the Moongoo in general, and that will have an effect slowly but surely. So I think we'll round the video up there. If you did enjoy that, then please do drop a like, it's much appreciated, and I look forward to talking to you next time.